Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is a GIMP workshop overview. I'm going to show you how to set up your workspace in a way that makes it a little bit easier and it flows better, and as well as show you some of the key features in GIMP so you can follow along with our projects. So here we go. I'm going to change to screen sharing and you can follow along with me and see what we're up to. Thanks. So here's an example of our workspace. We are, if you'll see, there's different features and we'll cover each one. These are the tools that are available to us. This is our color selection choice. And here are some key window options that can be moved around. We have, first of all, we're going to select a file. I'll show you how to select a file. You're going to use, this is called your, the menu across the top is an image menu. You're going to go to File. For the sake of this project, for the sake of an example, we're going to say New. There's different templates you can decide on. You can see all different ones. I'm going to just select, let's see, there's legal letter. I'll just select letter size. And you can see that it's already set for 300 ppi, which if you don't have that set, you can go to advanced options. And you'll see here 300 pixels per inch is what PPI means. And you can select those defaults. And what you're going to get is a screen of your rulers now appear, and you're going to see the image in your window. This is your workspace window. But I have a fairly large monitor. For some of you that don't, you might want to create more space. So I'll show you a couple things that you can do. And you can follow along, or if you're comfortable with the way your workspace is now, you can leave them the way they are. But first of all, we want to go into GIMP preferences. So GIMP preferences, you just go to the top of the menu under GIMP, select preferences. And what you'll see is a window that comes up. And I'll move it a little bit off to the side here. We want to talk about the customizing the workspace. One of the things that I like to do is you can go into the tool options and you can save the tool options now, and you can have different patterns with them. You can save the tool options on edit, etc. So we can select that. Okay, so if we go back to preferences, we're going to select an icon theme. The icon theme is the color of your background. So you can, the color of your icon. So I want to make mine in color. So you see I select the default is symbolic. I want to make my options color. I also want to make them larger. So I'm going to make a custom icon size. And then once I select custom icon size, I can select small, medium, large, or huge. I'm going to select large for my purposes. And then I'm going to click, let's see, what else can we do here before we leave? We have the toolbox. We want to use tool groups. Now, what happens if we don't have tool groups selected? You're going to get all of these different tools. When we have them grouped, that means that, like this, for example, is the move tool. It's also the home of the alignment tool. So if you were to select the alignment tool, it changes. It's more streamlined that way. And you can click back and forth. And that way you can toggle back and forth between the two of them. So you can, if whatever your preference is, you can check or uncheck, use tool groups right here under toolbox, interface, preferences, toolbox, interface, use tool groups. So you can also, as I said, you can also pick your icon, your theme. GIMP is a default of a dark color background, but you can change it to gray, light for the system. And I'm going to stick with the defaults, but you can make whatever you prefer. That's why they call them preferences. Obviously, you can do. So I'm going to maintain a dark background and say that is what I'm going to use. We can change the icon. We already changed the colors and the icon size to increase or decrease, and that's pretty much all of what I'm going to do with the preferences right now. So I'm going to click OK. One of the other things I want to show you is how to pick a foreground and a background color. And that's right here. So if I pick the foreground color, my default is black and my default background color is white. If I click on that, a color window is going to come up and you can see all of my different options. I can select a color by picking a red, green, and blue, which is RGB. That's basically a computer color format. And then we have the hexadecimal system where you can pick a color. Now, if you were to pick white, for example, or black, foreground is the hex is 00000. If I were to go pick white and go all the way up to the top corner, you can see that changes to F. So, and if you were to pick white, it's 100% red, green, and blue. And you can also pick from these different color areas. This is probably where I've been in the past, so it's picking the old one. So you can see here's your current color and here's your old color. And if you like, so if you find a color that you like, you can also do this with your mouse key and select a color that you want to do, and then you can just click OK. So now we've selected our foreground color. You can do the same thing for your background color, and you can also just click on here and change the, this is like a rainbow scale starting with red going down to an orangey red. And you can say, you want to take a blue, you can go in here, and you can, if you get a greener blue and you can get a more purpley blue, you can use a sliding scale as well. So if you want to just pick a background color, just pick one. If you want to be darker, lighter, brighter, duller, you can do any one of those things and say, okay. So now I have my two colors picked, and that's how you pick a foreground and a background color. When you have selected a, or opened a window or opened up an image, the rulers automatically appear. And you can see on the screen that I have little arrow keys that move with my mouse. So it's my position of my mouse is always indicated on the ruler bar. I can also, if I wanted to create guidelines, I can just hold my mouse down and pull a guideline down from the top, and I can pull it across the bottom. You can also pick a percentage too if you want to. Let's see if that works. That's navigating the image display. This is, over here in your top left-hand corner, you have all the menus that are above up here. Everything here is here as well if you want to just go here instead. And down here, you have to toggle your mask on and off if you're making a mask. And here is a background change. It's kind of fitting in the window. So in addition to the rulers, we also have dockable dialogues. Let's go over here on the right-hand side. You have brushes. These are all the available brushes to you, and so you can pick one. You can pick different ones when you use them. If you pick a paintbrush, all of your options, for example, will be here. So if you picked this brush, for example, you'll see that it's over here and you can make changes. Well, we're going to be moving this in a minute anyway, but so just to go through brushes, there's patterns. These are the default patterns that come with GIMP. And you have fonts. If you were to use the font tool, which is right here, you would be able to select a font to use, and then you could just type it in here. Let's say we use sans serif bold italic, and you set up your guides to write something here, and you can select it, and because the foreground color is red, you can make it larger. You can make it larger, and you can also do different, you can make it bold, et cetera, et cetera. This will also help you to make your letters farther apart or closer together. And this will change the baseline and make it go higher or lower. So if you want to accept that, then you could just hit return, and I don't really want it, so I'm going to hit delete. Edit, clear. So that's my test layer. If you go into, and oh, here is your document history. This will kind of record every place you've been in while you've been using GIMP. So if you wanted to refer back to something, it's going to be here. So we're going to continue down to moving our document layers. I actually would like to move these over here. These are dockable, this is dockable, and this is dockable. If you wanted to take your tool options, you could take it out of this window. I'd like to put my tools over here. So you can see that I've done that. I'm also, and I'll tell you why I'm doing this in a second, I'm also going to move my history. You can see that my history is pulling up there. I want my history to be next to my tool options. So I'm going to bring it across. I'm dragging over my images. I'm putting it in the same area as that. And then the device status is also going to go over here. So most of what I'm going to be using here is my tools. But what that has done for me is it's enabled me to come down here and take this and pull this over. So I have more room to work. And now what I have is all of my tools that are grouped with my color picker at the bottom in a row. And that gives me more room to work in. So, and then like, for example, also, these are also dockable windows, but we haven't gotten into them yet. We're going to go into the layers channel. The layers channel is right here. You can see I have this test layer right here. When you type in with the text tool and you write, it makes its own layer automatically. So if I wanted to get rid of that, I would go down to delete this layer, the X. So now I have a background layer only. So if I wanted to create a new layer, I would go over to here, create a new layer. You can name whatever you're creating it new. I'll name it new layer for the sake of the example. Should be filled with transparency. And the size should be the same as the size that you have started with. It may not always be, but you can see if I convert this from pixels to inches, it's 8.5 by 11, which is the same size. So the pixel width is 2550, 3300 is the height, and that translates into 8.5 by 11 inches. So I say, okay. Now this is what makes the layer visible. For example, if I took that away, you wouldn't see it anymore. And that's how that's used. We have channels. Channels is red, green, and blue. And an alpha channel is a transparent channel. And that's because we have in our layers panel, we have a new layer that has transparency. So that would make the alpha channel. And you can, each color group is going to be visible in the green, blue, red, and alpha channel. We also have paths. When we use the path tool, this was where our path will appear, and this is how we access it. There's little arrow keys here and here, and you can select that. So since I've moved all of our tools and I created this long row, I've showed you how to move them. Again, just to reinforce that, you can see when you see a, you'll see a blue light, like if I want to bring it back here. For example, when it's blue, it's now going to appear to the right of the tool window options. And I wanted to bring it back here, and I put it back. Let's see what I have to then, again, stretch this down so it's all in one line. As I said, this is the new layer button. This will raise the path. Let's go back into, if you're in paths, it's going to deal with paths. But if we wanted to go into layers, this is to add a new layer. This is to create a new layer group. And this is to increase it. Like if I wanted to make the background layer above the new layer, I would hit this arrow key and it would go down. If I wanted it to be below, I could do that. If I wanted to create a duplicate of the layer, a lot of times you want to have a duplicate of your background layer or your background image in case something happens, you'll still have the original to work with. And here's the icon for merging layers. If I wanted to merge these two layers together, let's say I wanted to create, let's use a paintbrush, and we have the color red selected, and I'm picking a brush. Let's do a star. I want to, let's make the star really, really big. Let's see how big this goes. That's a pretty big star. So I click on that. Now I have a red star. I want to merge it to my background layer. So I'm going to merge this layer with the one below it. And now I have one layer. So I can no longer edit that star. I didn't create it as a path. So it's now a one layer. So if I wanted to create a new layer, I'd have to go down here, create a new layer, fill with transparency, click OK. And now I'm in my new layer, and I'm going to make another star. So now I have two layers. If I turn one off, you can't see it anymore. And that's how that works. Well, after you familiarize yourself with everything, you see there's like a whole bunch of tools. There's a paintbrush, a pencil, any tool that you select up from over here is going to come up in your tool options window, and all of your options are going to be there. You can change the size, the aspect range, the spacing, the hardness, the force. All of those are available to you. You can change the opacity up here, make it really, really thin, or really, really transparent, I should say, in that layer. You can also, once you have the layer created, you can change the opacity here as well. You can see I can make this layer a lot lighter. That's useful when I'm trying to see if I want to see what's going on in the layer underneath. I can overlay it. I can use my move tool. When you're in your move tool, there's three choices. You have a mask layer, a path layer, and another layer, and you want to move in the active layer. The active layer that's selected is right here. So you're going to select move. Now I could move my active layer. You see, I can put this right on top of the star, and maybe I want to change the color of it. So let's make it yellow, some kind of yellowish color. And I'm going to select it. And I'm going to fill in the foreground. Fill in the foreground colors under Edit, Control click comma, fill with foreground color. So now you say I have an overlay. If I were to do 100% opacity, it'll be completely this greenish yellow color that I selected. But because it's transparent, it's overlaying over this background color, and it's creating a new color. So if I were to go back to moving it again, checking that I'm moving the active layer, move it out of the way. Now you can see I have two stars again. I can increase the opacity, and you can see that 100%, or right now it's 85, we're getting all the way up to 100. So that's how you work with the different layers and using the brushes and patterns. So, okay, select none. See these marching ants, that's what they call these around here. You can hit your select none button, go up to edit, select none. And now your layer is not active, or it's not creating a path. So if you wanted to create a path, you would have to select it. Go in the Paths tool. While you're in the layers panel, let's say you wanted to make a selection of this tool. You wanted to make a path of it so you could use it in other places. You could go into your Paths tool right here. When you see you're in your Paths tool, you can make a selection from the path. First of all, you have to select it. And then you want to make a selection from the path. And you could go into your Paths tool here. That's not there. Oh, forget that example. Okay, we're going to cut that out. All right, so select none in your layers panel. You're in the new layer tool. I want to move that star a little bit away, put it back up here. If I want to get rid of my guides, if I wanted to remove my guides, one way I can do it is just by selecting View and unselecting Show Guides, and they will disappear. And if you want to bring them back again, you can go back to View and Show Guides. And now you have more. Let's go over a couple of quick tools. For example, here's our alignment tool. Our alignment tool, if you look at the tool options, relative to the first item, you can center. So you can center, distribute, and just, so if I wanted to do different things with it, I could. Across your GIMP menu, you'll see that you have all of these different options and features. Under Edit, select by color, view, image, layer, colors. One of the things we want to talk about too is features. Filters, for example. We want to play with an image. So we have an image. Let's say I want to create a shadow. I'm going to go to Filters, Light and Shadow, Drop Shadow. You can see what it created, like a little drop shadow here. I think I'd like to see it a little darker. I can play with the different options here to make the shadow bigger, wider, longer, wider. There's all kinds of different ways you just play around with the different options that are available until you find the one that you want. And then you can just say, okay, now I found that to be the radius a little bit too big. I want to make it smaller. You can also type in a number. You can use the arrow keys up and down to select a number too. And then when you're satisfied, you can just click OK. You can also, that doesn't really look good to me at all. In this particular case, maybe that's not what I want. So I want to reduce it. I also maybe want to make it a little bit lighter. It's too hard. So bring it to, if I want to see what it looks like, it'll split your screen. You can select split view. Let's say so I'm in my new layer selection and I want to adjust my drop shadow. So I'm going to go pick drop shadow, filters, light and shadow, drop shadow. And here are my options window for my drop shadow. You can see that it's very, very dark, but I just wanted to show you that when you can make different changes with the direction and the shape and the color. The color's black. If you wanted it to be another color, you could pick another color. You could pick another color from the image. And then you'd have a red shadow. You can see that it has a red tone, or you could change the color here. Maybe you would like to have a goldish color shadow. You click OK there. And you can see that there's a little bit of a gold tint to it. If you want to see what you were doing, you could do split view and you could see what 1/2 of your options are while you're working. So let's say we didn't want to have any drop shadow, or we want to make it bigger, the X and the Y. If you want to unlink them, you could click on this together and then you could work on them separately. You could bring them up or down. You see what it's doing. You can see what you're doing in the split view. You see what it was before and then you can see what it was after. And then you can click OK if you like it. You can always make sure that the live preview is checked too, so that you can see what's going on. Not every filter allows that, but the ones that do, it's kind of good so you can see what you're doing at a glance. Also, one of the things that you'll probably need to know in the image menu across the top or in this corner, where you could go to colors and you could decide what colors you wanted to play with. A lot of the times you can make changes to your colors. I'm not going to go through every single one, but the main ones are color temperature and hue chroma and hue saturation. You can also adjust the levels and curves. So for example, I'm still in this new layer here with my green star, and I can also access my colors up here. Let's say I want to do color balance. So I have my midtones, my shadows, and my highlights. Right now I'm gonna have, they also have preset ones that you can use. And you wanted to maybe make it bluer, greener. So you can play with these options. This is gonna make it more magenta. When you check off split view, when you have split view selected, you can see what it would look like if you had one. When you made your changes, you can see what happens. If you don't have split view selected, it's still going to have the preview. So you're going to get your changes. Let's say I wanted to make this, you could just play with this. That's color balance. And if you don't want to do anything, you just hit cancel. So if you wanted to do hue chroma, you can see what the difference are with hue. You're going to make it higher or lower to change the hue. It's in like a red, purple, yellow, green. So you can change it that way. Also, the chroma is the intensity of the image. You could, if you want to take out a lot of the color, you could bring it to the left, reduce it or increase it depending on how you want it to look. Again, you have split view if you want to see the before and after. And lightness is just going to make it brighter or darker. And so you can play with that too. You'll be probably using that one a lot. And just one other thing about color, maybe, well, saturation also makes it more intense. If you have an image, shadows and highlights, levels and curves are used a lot in Photoshop. So if I use levels and curves, it's a different kind of window, but you can select the input and output, and you can adjust levels and curves. If there's an automatic one, sometimes you can do that, but here's you can adjust it this way, that way. You can see what your split view is going to look like. You can make the darks lighter, etc. Cancel. I'm not going to do that. Okay. So once you're finished, oh, if you want to go to filters also. Filters is another feature where you're going to have all of your blur choices are going to be here. Enhance, distorting. You can make all kinds of distortions. Let's try one. Let's see if one of these will work for us. Let's do spherize. And you can see what happens is the layer that's selected will do a spherize, and you could pick different modes, horizontal, vertical, etc. These are all things that you need to play with. You can see what the split looks like if you want, and click OK. And if you want to undo it, you have your undo history here, and you're going to go here and you go back to a previous version, all the way back to the very beginning, which is going to be your base layer, base image. If you want to go back to the very beginning, you would lose that layer altogether. So you can, if you make a mistake or if you want to go back to something you did prior, you can see all of the steps that you've done. And you can also undo, undo, undo for a certain number of choices. Okay, so let's just say we finished our project. And we're going to need to merge these two layers to make one layer, but you don't have to, because you can do a file save. And we're going to put this in our GIMP projects folder. And we're going to put it, you can put it where, if you want to save a project, you put it where you want, but I'm going to say test project here. You can name it. And it's going to be called an XCF file, and that means it's going to save the layers as well. So now I have it going into my folder, and I'm going to click Save. Okay, so now I've saved it, but I can't use, I still have, so these two images, when I open it up again, I'm going to have my two layers available, but I want to export it when I want to save it as another file type. Now here's all select by file type, select file by type extension, and I'm going to save it again. It's called text project. I'm going to click on select file type, and you can see all of the different extensions that you can have for your file type. In my case, I'm looking for JPEG, which is right here. But they have GIFs for animations, they have PNG files, they have TIFF files. So these are all the options that you can save or you can export your file to. So let's just export it as a JPEG right now. And I have to find it again because I lost it. Here we go. Select JPEG. It changed to JPEG up here. And I'm going to say export. So I'm just going to accept all these defaults. There's different options you can pick. I'm just going to accept the defaults because I'm sure they're okay. So now I have my XCF file, text project XCF. And I also can now open my JPEG file under wherever I stored it. I can open the JPEG file, and I'll show you the difference. The difference between a JPEG file is there's only one layer, and it's a print. It's totally complete and printed. And here you have your XCF file, where if you wanted to make a change, let's say you wanted to change this background to a different color, you could decide later, oh, I don't like that color anymore, so maybe I want it to be lighter, and I could do that. Click OK, so I can see the before and after, split view. I accept that. So now that's going to be my new file. If I didn't like what I did, like I said, you can undo, go back to the beginning, and that's pretty much it for the GIMP overview. So thanks for joining us. I hope you got something out of that workshop. I hope you were able to find some features, and I hope you can spend some time having fun and learning how to play with GIMP. It's a really nice program, and the great thing about it is it's easily downloaded and it's free for everyone to use on different operating systems. There's plenty of videos too that you can get, that you can watch, that can show you the different features. If you have something specific in mind that you want to learn about, you can research it online and find something to look at. And you can follow this step by step, so that when if you want to take you want to learn about a certain feature, you can go to it and then you can stop and come back. If you want to refresh your memory of how things work and where things go, you can easily refer back to it in this workshop. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.